This is the Paltalk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet, with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I remind you once again that you should be checking early and often, just like voting in Chicago, to our news site, PaltalkNewsNetwork.com, to see stories that you may or may not see here or read in the mainstream media. One of the top stories today has to do with the Justice Department being split on torture attorneys, whether they should or should not have been disciplined. That's going to be the subject of today's show. We also have a story there about the White House Social Secretary resigning. Is she the sacrificial lamb for the couple that managed to sneak into the White House during a state dinner? Desiree Rogers is on the way out. She's a pretty lady. Maybe she'll find a place doing television news. Speaking of television news, we had a snowstorm here in the New York area last night that continued into this morning. You know, it's the winter. It's supposed to snow. You would think it was Armageddon, the end of the world, with the wall-to-wall coverage of the snowstorm. In fact, in one of the cancellations I received to a social event, a band playing that I was invited to tonight, they called it Snowageddon, like Armageddon, Snowageddon. It's absolutely ridiculous. Does anybody know what the population of New York City is? How many millions of people? I don't know how many millions it is, but it's millions of people. One person, one solitary 8 million people, 11 million people, 15 million people, I don't know. Out of these millions of people, one individual, one singular individual, walking through Central Park, got knocked in the head by a tree limb that broke under the weight of the snow and died. As a result of that, believe it or not, the Parks Department here in New York City warn people, don't go into the parks, it's dangerous. I'm not kidding you. The most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. One person out of 11 million or 10 million people. One person out of 10 million people gets knocked in the head and dies. Don't walk in the park. Now, do you have any idea, and I actually should have researched this before the show, how many people get hit by vehicles in New York City every year? Maybe we should be telling people, don't go out of your house in New York. You might get hit by a vehicle. Or bicycles, for that matter. Exactly. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I turned on the television to try to get an idea. I wanted to look at their Doppler radar to see, whether we were going to get another wave where I live, and should I go out and dig the car out now, or should I wait a while, that kind of thing. And they're going, don't go out, stay home, take an extended weekend. Well, I don't know. I think that if I owned a business, I'd be calling that station and telling them to shut up. In fact, I was a very, very brave person today. I was. I don't come on here and toot my own horn, pat myself on the back for all the wonderful superhero kind of things that I do. I kind of keep quiet about it. I'm kind of, shy and introverted, and you know, I just don't feel comfortable talking about it. But I will tell you that in spite of the end of the world coming to this area, I got a phone call today from my son. He was at his girlfriend's about a 30-minute drive from here. Would I go pick him up? Well, since I was working from home, I said sure. 1 hour on the treacherous roads in the middle of this blinding snowstorm. I put my life on the line to pick up my son. The roads were plowed. The sun was out. Yes, you know, there were clumps of snow melting off the limbs and off the electrical wires that were pounding the car periodically. Ooh, scary. And on the way home, Daniel says to me, Dad, if you had lunch, could we stop at a restaurant up here to grab some lunch? And I walked into the restaurant with my son. And guess how many customers were in the restaurant when we walked in? That's right, Cassandra. One customer. And the poor owner of the restaurant said, my business is dying on the vine because of the news media. His lot was plowed. The sidewalk in front of his store was shoveled. It was 50 miles an hour speed limit in front of his restaurant, and I was doing 50 miles an hour, and I was being passed by people. But don't venture out. Stay inside another day. Have we become a bunch of wusses these days that we can't venture out into our own environment that God gave us? It's so beautiful out there today. All the people that stayed inside, they missed out. It was just the most gorgeous day. At one point, it was kind of interesting because where he was, where I picked him up, it was bright and sunny, and as we moved back towards our neck of the woods, the nor'easter was swinging around, but further up the coast, and so we could see the snow clouds ahead of us. But where we were, it was sunny, and as we passed the park, the sun was glistening off the snow on the branches, you know, those branches that could fall down and hit you in the head and kill you. And in the back, it was contrasted by this dark, ominous-looking cloud. And I wish I had my camera with me. It would have been worth stopping and making a picture. It was just a beautiful contrast. But, of course, there were very few people out on the street because they were afraid to drive, you know, because the news media said, stay at home. Unbelievable. It really is. It's just beyond me how we've become a bunch of wusses. And, you know, I was reflecting to a friend today that in my childhood and or youth, I used to camp as a Boy Scout. By the way, even in the winter, in this kind of weather. And we'd be in the woods.